paper 3 for today. All right, so our speaker will be Dr. Yoke Lai from the Faculty of Built Environment, Universiti Teknologi, Malaysia. A little bit about Dr. Yoke Lai. So Dr. Yoke Lai is a senior lecturer in the Department of Landscape Architecture. She started her career in 2009 as a tutor in the Faculty of Built Environment, Universiti Teknologi, Malaysia, UTM. She graduated from Department of Urban Engineering, Graduate School at the University of Tokyo, Japan in 2016. She later joined the Territorial Design Studies Unit Kubota Sensei Lab and Urban Design Laboratory Nishimura Sensei Lab during her PhD studies at the University of Tokyo. She received a diploma in architecture 2002 from Polytechnic Sultan Haji Ahmad Shah Kuantan Pahang, BA Honours in Landscape Architecture 2008, Master of Science in Urban Design 2012 from the Universiti Teknologi, Malaysia. She is also the head of Heritage Landscape Planning, Design and Management Research Group, HLN, and her current research interest is urban studies, cultural landscape, urban conservation, urban history and social history, and landscape design. Today, ladies and gentlemen, she'll be presenting her paper entitled Interpreting SDG11 in the Landscape Architectural Studio on Community Park Planning and Urban Farming. So, make cities inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable is one of the Sustainable Development Goals. From an educational perspective, the senior lecturer from UTM will highlight how the achievement of this goal can be applied in professional, educational, at institutes of higher education. So ladies and gentlemen, let's not forget the schools, what we have prepared and how do we prepare our students toward achieving this SDG. And to share the secret, let's allow none other than Dr. Yoke Lai from UTM to share her experience with her. Dr. Yoke Lai, you look so sweet today. Right? And the floor is yours.
Thank you, PM Dr. Atia. Thank you very much for the introductions. All right, I'm honored for the Jabatan Landskap Negara for the invitations to share input, sharing sessions to all today. I think from the respective keynote speakers and also from the Mayor of Seberang Perai and also PM Dr. Suhadi have give us very big pictures related the field of the landscape architecture and the current industry of the landscape architectures. So I will bring the audience into the skill of the university, what we have done for the studio design. So I'm sharing here is a community landscape and a park design, a studio. Is a critics and analysis of a landscape design projects, showing how a recreational park and the design and also the urban farm to respond a sustainable development goal 11. All right, next slide, please. Okay, sorry, because I'm still looking at the first slide. Maybe my internet connections are slightly slow.
So,
okay,
Dr. Lia, over there?
The first thing that I would like to address, sorry, because I just saw this the first slide. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Yep.
I would like to address here the challenge of the urban issues. The urbanization in our cities has destroyed many land resources that cause to the declining of air quality, infrastructures, and also the climate change. So in addition to these urban issues, the emergence of the current issues like the pandemic COVID-19 also has a risk to the socio-economic and environmental impacts. So these unexpected and uncontrolled urban issues have driven many of the greeneries change, yeah. So we can see some of the land use have converted, yeah, and some of the urban inhabitat have removed, especially all the natural greeneries and the original of riparian vegetations composed from diverse species are destroyed. So these urban issues is something that evoke, I think, for the landscape architects, the urban planner, and also the policymakers. This is a time to transform, to take an actions towards to creating a cities to be more resilient and sustainable. Second slide, please. Okay. Come to this. Let's go into more deeper. What is the Sustainable Development Goal 11? The approach of SDG 11 is involved the city returning and the city returning sustainability and community. So in overview, there are 17 Sustainable Development Goals have been mentioned here, including this SDG 11. They are intended to be achieved by the year of 2030, which means that 9 years from now, right? So what we have, so this Sustainable Development Goal have been set in this United Nations SMD since 2015. So let's look in SDG 11. It's equally critical. Why? Because come to the questions, how urban communities interact with the peri-urban rural neighborhood to address the effective resources and the services provision that needed to make the cities and the human inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. So all these are the important keywords that have stated in the SDG 11s. Therefore, it is significant here. The questions like, how shall we to explore and foresee what and how to do and what to plan? So to create an inclusive urban cities or green spaces, it's because urban space offer an opportunity for people or the publics to prosper or to thrive economic and social, which means that when we look at the SDG 11 itself, it's not only focused on the physicals, but it also brings to thrive on economic and also social aspect. Whereby in our local governments is try to target or proximity the local community, especially to understand, to influence people attitudes, their perceptions, their behavior, how to achieve Sustainable Development Goal 11. So to target this SDG 11, it's important to stimulate an action, yeah, the encouragement, especially to promote to the local. Because without this promotion to the local, it's hard to achieve all these Sustainable Development Goals, right? So we as a community, we as a part of community, it's important for us to build, to manage our urban space and also green space. All right, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So in Sustainable Development Goal 11, SDG 11, there are also, they have several indicators. I have picked two important targets to support the projects related to urban green space and also urban farming. So by looking here, there are two target indicators that related to park and green spaces. So the first one is the target 11.7 to provide an access to safe, inclusive, and accessible green and public spaces to all the users, which including the disabilities, yeah, the disabled people. And the secondly, is the target of 11.A to support a positive economic, social, and environmental that link between urban, peri-urban, and rural area by strengthening the nation and development planning. So these respective SDG11 indicators are useful in the planning to achieve a sustainable urban green spaces and also community sustainability. Next slide, please. Okay, come to the questions here. How does the landscape architecture students contribute to achieve a sustainable development goal? Initially, there is no specific sustainable development goal education process clearly shows in our landscape design studio. Therefore, the landscape architects do indeed have this potential to make a huge impact for the SDGs through here the urban farming or the park design. So we can see here we have a good example of urban farm or the edible park, such as like Kebun Bangsa, and also the edible park that here at Medini. So this urban park in Malaysia is initiated by the local government as well as the NGOs. They have shown a positive sign where people nowadays they are more conscious, yeah, where people already, the local community, they start to accept, they understand their responsibility towards environment and also sustainable for food productions. The conception of urban farming is to enhance the social cohesion, yeah, and food security, food safety, and take the rightful place to support the whole urban food system. So, meaning to say, the creation of a community park planning and urban farming is important here to target is to ensure that the planning, the park or recreational design is more resilient and sustainable. Next slide, please. Okay, here shows the importance of SDGs 11 incorporating in a park planning. So when we talk about the topic of sustainability, for us as a teachers and student as well, we will feel overwhelmed when we start to do a design on sustainability because it's a big topic, right? So, however, in the SDGs, something that we have to emphasize here, what I have showed on this slide, is important or essentials to emphasize the connections between people, physical, social infrastructures, education, science, and diversity. So it is important in the university to educate the future young LA, our landscape architecture student, on how creating a space making where encourage in space making for the urban dwellers, how to integrate sustainable agriculture practice and also park recreational encouragement for public to stay balanced in the ecosystem and also a healthy urban environments. Also, in SDG 11, it is important also to target the social pillars which to help the society to achieve well-being. Here that I would like to emphasize also, in terms of the design, the park connectors network and also the landscape green corridor development is important to mitigating the impact of urbanization and also the climate change. Move to the next slide, please. Okay, here come to the overview, at least for the pictures for the audience to see how the SDGs integrated into the landscape architectures studios. So basically, the landscape studio design process here involves 4 stages. I'm sharing here is to exemplify the teaching the undergrad students. So this landscape community studio is the second years is for the second year students. For them to comprehend, to understand the sustainable development goal, and to impose the idea of the recreational park design and also the urban farming. So by introducing to promote on SDGs and how the student apply or translate their idea during the design manifestation stage. In this community landscape and park design studio is fully conducted through virtuals. So all the input lectures, the studio discussion, a critic session, the expert sharing sessions, and also the final presentation, all are conducted through virtual. So what we expect here in the final, the outcome from the studio learning, we hope to see that the students will fostering more on resilient learners and to produce a young LA which able to contribute to sustainable development goal. Next slide, please. So here's shows this another more macros or more detail of the studio design process. Okay, so as I said just now, we begin to introduce on the understanding of SDG indicators. Basically, the students, they will conduct the site inventory and also through their field work. After the site studies, but for this time around, due to the COVID pandemic and also MCOs, so only 10 students are physically able to conduct the site studies. So after that, the student, they will share the raw data to their peers. Okay. The process of the synthesized idea will continue by the conceptual development, as well as the mapping a rational idea, and also the design implements the strategies. So the next in the design development, which have conducted where the student have to come out with the final master plan and also a detailed area. The duration of completing this entire studio or the process is took 7 weeks. The next slide, please. So here is the tips, the design indicators. We as a studio master, we help the student in refine the design indicator, how to design a park planning and urban farm. The Sustainable Development Goals articulate a comprehensive design. So you can see that the listed target factors allow the student to construct a more in-depth vocabulary studies or literature review that related to SDG11. So the synthesized idea will guide the student to map and to link how the SDGs indicator into a visual diagrams. All right, next. The next, I would like to show a few examples, a quick one, so that you can see that how students translate their literature idea or vocabulary study into a visual diagram. Next slide, please. So you can see here one of the example, the studies on the SDG 11 in urban farming. The student come out with the idea to summarize in a fishbone diagram, infographic, and also a Venn chart. Next slide, please. So the content of SDG 11 in urban farming is comprehensively explained in all these translation of graphical diagrams. Next slide, please. This is virtually to understand that also, beside an urban farming, to link or to connect the SDG11 is important for us to look at on the urban greenery. So this topic on socialization of residents in urban greeneries is important to emphasize here. Next slide, please. At the last but not least, and another example that I want to show here is the treat street, and the urban orchard study, where to create a urban green network or the green corridor. All right, next slide, please. So I will go quick to the to introduce the major project, the master plan that where students have done. The site selection is a collaborative between the Majlis Perbandaran Johor Bahru, Johor Bahru Municipal Council with UTM, to propose approximately 1.34 hectares that includes also a river in the length of 640 meters. So this river, Sungai Sri Buntan, is begin at the stream from the center of Bandar Baru Uda and feeds toward the Sungai Danga. So this site is a stretch of the forest, grassland area, and the disturbed vegetations. According to the local municipal council, this site shall be planned and designed in related to recreational park. So we also introduce a studio philosophy where it's basis on the World Economic Forum, namely the climate change, economic health and well-being, human health and well-being, and the additional of community farm and connectivity into the design process. Next. As I say in the beginning of this, okay, this is an overview of the site project, Sungai Sri Buntan. So you can see that the stretch of the river and also adjacent to the secondary forest and the neighborhood of Bandar Baru Uda. Next slide, please. This, okay, come to this, the idea, the conceptions of a park connectors. The main idea of generate the master plan is to connecting the green area to the proposed site. So the park connector that link to the Bandar Baru Uda is important here, where the extending of the park network connecting to the adjacent neighborhood, residential area, commercial, playground, pocket spaces, and so on. So the alternative of the pathway and the access is important to look at in this park connector design. Next slide, please. So this is the final master plan design by the students. This is only the one of example. In the studio, I have divided into the 5 groups. So the idea of this master plan is to propose the river corridor park that function as a linear greeneries that afford the recreational services. So you can see a lot of the varieties of the activity spaces, as well as the urban farming and also the urban farming that at the right of this linear park. The role and the purpose of urban farming and the orchard here is is to encourage for the agricultural practices, to improve the food security, safety, and to increase the sense of community ownership and stewardships. So the greeneries riverine here is also to bring back the tropical rainforest ecosystem at the also the population of mammals, including like tupies and primates, which we have no longer seen in urban cities right now. In the meanings, this park is to provide a stability, complex and rich ecosystem of Sungai Sri Buntan riverine greeneries. Now, next slide, please. So for the activities parts, the designing of the activity for this Sungai Sri Buntan riverine, to impose or to impart the cultural ecosystem services is to foster the connections or the connectivity between the community and the park users. So you can see that there are various of activities beside urban farming. This park also provide a recreational, the outdoor recreational, natural learning, river walk, aesthetic enjoyment, physical and benefit for the mental and spiritual experience. Okay, next slide, please. So here also I would like to share this, the student manifestation, the interpretation idea. They also show some in the cut sections, how the planting design. Here is 2 examples of the section to replanting a resilient plant species that will help to facilitate the phytoremediations. And the selection of plant also this to help to source the food source and also the wildlife. All right. Okay, next slide, please. Beside the master plan presentations, in where students have to work in the group, the individual student also have to come out with the detail area. So I'm not going to highlight to explain more about this. It's just to show the audience to see that the student have to signify the detail planting and also the hardscape construction. Next slide. When they come to the detail area design. Okay. So I would like to end my presentation in the conclusion. Next slide, please. I'm happy to see the goal and the target to meet the entire of the studio, the virtual studio design, the design input, output, delivery, and impact of integrating the SDG11 into the landscape master plan design. I can proud to say that we have worked very hard for this studio project. We spent only 7 weeks in completing Sungai Sri Buntan Riverine master plan detail area. And we wish that the design output will contribute to the local authority in the park planning and development in future. Like what I said before, to provide for the SDG 11, to achieve a SDG 11, it's important here to provide an inclusive and accessible green and spaces for people to attain health and also the urban quality of life. In short, the urban farming and the community park will also bring the benefits for this food security, social cohesion, and also to increase the urban greeneries with the park connectors. So in conclusions, the teaching of this studio and the learning process give a positive impact, insightful response to me, and a meaningful understanding of localizing SDG 11 into a community park planning, as well as to design an urban farm. So before, next slide, please. And next slide, please. Okay. Before I end off my presentation, I would like to express my gratitude and appreciation to my partners, to my studio partners and the coordinators as well, Professor Dr. Ismail Sai and also Madam Suradia. And also I would like to gratitude for our collaborative Majelis of MBJB, landscape architect Mustika, and also Mr. Bang Bang. Thank you for the support. I think our students much appreciate what we have fully support from the local authority. Thank you. So I end my presentation.
Hello. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Yoke Lai, for the presentation just now. I think you have started our afternoon session with a beautiful graphics from school. So, and I really feel that those who are with us online could still bring back the memories when we were at school together in the studios with the lecturers, went for a site visits, and at the end of the day, crash our head to finish up the project. So thank you so much for sharing. I'm pretty sure all the landscape architects outside longing for these experiences. And trust me, this seminar is not just talking about the practitioner, but also talking about how the educationists or educators really prepared our students towards achieving the SDG. Thank you so much for the presentation and showing us all the process that students went through and also the final outputs. And we're very happy to see the collaborations between the schools and also the stakeholders that making the students are very, they basically understand the real life and the real issues on site. But more importantly, I believe, Dr. Lee, among the practitioners outside, it must be something quite new to see all the students. Last time when we had a studio picture, everybody will stand, will hug each other. But the last slide she showed us, everybody was on screen. So yeah, how do you manage this studio with all the students on screen? So it is good for you to share with others who might miss this kind, because we all didn't go through this kind of learning method. So how would you achieve this SDG approach project within the screen? Students who are basically, we taught the students on screen. Could you please share with us? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Atia. Thank you for the questions. I think Dr. Atia and most of the lecturers here in Malaysia from any local university having the same, I think, experience how to conduct a virtual studio. I think it's a challenge and tough for us because we spend more time. Am I right, Dr. Atia? We spend more time actually when we conduct a virtual studio. Meaning to say, the idea to begin or to impart SDGs 11 or the SDG studies into the studio is because in the university level, I believe for the undergrads, I'm not touching on the postgraduate. Yeah, I believe postgraduate they know or understand about the SDGs. But for undergrads, I think it's a good start for us to nurture in their learning. Yeah, especially in the designs of studio program, to introduce to them, especially the lower student. So to let them to understand, initially is to ask them to read. So beside the reading, we also invited some of the experts, let's say the expert from Think City, to share some of the live project, so the student can understand not only from the literature studies, but they can see how the output or the outcome of successful live projects. So the impact from or the outcome from the study and also their experience to listen to the some of the successful project. This may help them to understand more in depth on the SDGs. So this is how we have done the first part to make sure the student understand before to help them to define the indicators, what to design in the aspect, so the student can come out of more with the clear design aims and objective. Yeah, Dr. Atia.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. I think that's very noble. And when you also say that we spend more time teaching online, I would have agreed on that, because some of our students do not have a very strong or proper internet lines or whatnot.
Yes.
So credit habis and whatnot, yeah.
Exactly.
And mak panggil suruh beli kunyit dekat pasar, yeah. So these are basically the flavors of online teaching and online learning that we have faced last semester in particular, and hoping that this semester we start in March. We are all going to be seeing each other face to face in the studio, yeah, Dr. Lee?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Dr. Atia.
Yeah, one question for you, Dr. Lee. We have from Landskap Negara Adi Zakwan Che Ali, right, from FB Live. So the question here is that plus point, if students in school able to provide a figure such as percentage or ringgit and cent on how much this community farming can contribute to food security, especially in local communities. So this is I believe a suggestion, but any comments on that, Dr. Lee? Over to you.
Okay, thank you for the suggestions. Yeah, I think it's good to look at this, because this is for second year student, we do not include in the feasibility studies, the costing for the projects. Normally in this, the university, the students in the final year or fourth year, they will come out with this, the costing for their landscape projects. But I think this is a good suggestions. We will think about this. Maybe we should start to apply or to to suggest maybe in futures lower studio. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lee. And Landskap kita Adi Zakwan is basically our members from UCAM, University College of Agriculture, Melaka. So thank you so much, Mr. Landskap kita Adi. We miss you so much. And Dr. Lee, thank you for once again for sharing the studios and bringing the students to the national platform. And again, to bring the memories of all the practicing landscape architects. How do we come from the root of our education and also the teachers who are teaching us? This is a very, I call it a very emotional state. Yeah. So when Dr. Lee showed all the pictures and the projects, and we owe you so much. Thank you, Dr. Lee. Stay safe.
Welcome.
Thank you for the sharing today.
Yeah, thanks.
All right.